We are talking about a big week in Detroit with the Rocket Mortgage Classic. We're joined by some experts in here. Dan Walsh, how was your golf game? On a scale of 1 to 10.
Probably, I'll say a 6.
A 6.
I play some golf.
Okay.
I care about golf, but nobody's ever happy with their golf game.
All good. I'm more like a 1.
Yeah.
I may want to grab a drink and sit down and just watch me hit the ground so a few times. And I don't know if our panelists want to, how was your golf game, by the way?
I can golf.
You can golf.
I just get excited when I make contact with the ball.
Okay,
As long as it goes, I'm happy.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Tony?
I was one of those guys that only did the scrambles where you did best ball, but about 3 years ago, I really started taking this seriously. So I went from terrible, I worked really hard, and now I'm really, really bad. But with enough work, I'm hoping to just be bad. Golf's one of those games where, there's always someone better.
All right.
100%.
Definitely letting a lot of our partners join in, so we'll cut off here in a second. Welcome to another Pro Performance. I appreciate all the partners joining in. My name is Firas Shahari, Divisional Vice President, and I'm here with
Dan Welch, I'm a Division Vice President. I've been with the family of companies going on about 13 years. I was a loan officer for a good period of time, probably 7, and then I think we started the leadership journey together here at TPO.
Absolutely. It's been nothing but great ride with what we have. We are actually joining in on a very important topic. This is a topic on the minds of many LOs, real estate agents. How can we move a buyer from a no to a yes this summer? And we have a great guest that we're actually gonna talk about this, absolute pros in this industry. What's better than bringing a mortgage broker, loan officer, and a real estate agent into a conversation, discuss that, and give value to everybody out there. We need, we have Therese Antonelli, broker owner of Moving the Mitten Real Estate Group, and Tony Wright, founder and co-owner of Mortgage JV. And we have a lot of great discussions that we're gonna talk about. Dan, we wanna walk us through exactly what we're discussing today.
So kind of the plan is to have a conversation about, what opportunities we found and what are the financial implications for clients waiting on lower rates. We want to make sure that we're also getting ready for clients that are ready to buy a home immediately. And then just kind of talk a little bit about how special loan products can help you along that journey and what we can do as loan officers to do a better job of supporting our real estate agents as they bump into some of those objections. But really, why we're here, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but homes are expensive and so are interest rates. That kind of coupled with what we've seen with inventory has probably put us in one of the more challenging markets that we've seen certainly in a very long time, if not ever. And just to kind of give you some statistics behind it, if you look here, this is the home appreciation since the 1960s, okay? So if you're looking to have a conversation and maybe put some numbers behind, like what is the true cost of waiting, this is a great way to do it. And if you look at this graph, the one thing that you'll see consistently since the 1960s is that homes have gone up in price. Shocker, right? But even more recently, we've seen it become a little bit more sharp. If you would have bought a house roughly 9 years ago, you would have seen somewhere in the neighborhood of $130,000 in appreciation nationwide, which is pretty amazing. And it's something that I don't think that first-time home buyers or somebody that's looking to get into their next home really think too much about. But what we're staring at here is generational wealth. And a year ago, we saw a lot of people that were very hesitant to enter the market because of what we had seen with rates happening so quickly. And if we look at like some of the statistics a little bit more recently, they're pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about generational wealth, talking about eye-opening data that we really could look at and what it means. If a client wanted to buy a house in early 2023, Q1 23, and they actually thought that the interest rates are high at the time, which is not compared to now, or home prices were really high, and said, I'm going to wait until these things do drop, rate to come down and home value to come down as well. That's in early 2023, Q1 2023. That same client could have gained almost 10% in equity. That would help a lot. So if we look at it here on a $500,000, that's almost $50,000 in gained equity that would build the generational wealth that we're talking about, and how we can move these buyers from a no to a yes this summer. More importantly, that could mean a no mortgage insurance when refinancing. When rates drop, at the time, it could be a lot better position financially. It could mean actually $200-300 more a month payment where it's at right now. So a lot of good stuff. I know there's so many things that goes into qualifying eligibility. Dan, what are some of the things that our partners could look at and client eligibility?
Yeah, for sure. I think with client eligibility, it's all about finding the right program for the right person. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And a lot of times, just leveraging products is a good way for you to figure out, like, what's the real reason that somebody is maybe sitting on the sidelines, right? And some of the programs that we have that, you can really lean into to have that conversation is, hey, somebody doesn't have the perfect down payment put together yet, okay? Have you really analyzed their financial situation well enough to know, maybe they're eligible for something like 1+, Home Ready, Home Possible. Can we put a little bit more money in somebody's pocket as they go to purchase? Are they hesitant on the payment? Do they think that their situation is going to change in a year or two? Have we talked to them about what opportunities a temporary buy down might hold? Looking at buying down the rate entirely. Are you looking for homes that have been listed for a while that maybe sellers' concessions can open up a door for us? And really, when you look at what products we offer, it's all about understanding the client's situation. And maybe that's not something that works for them. Maybe that's not the route that we go. But what are we learning about the client as we have that conversation? And that's critically important. The other piece, too, is, as I talk to a lot of my broker partners and as I kind of look into some of the loans that hit my desk, probably more than ever, you see a lot of people that are 40% DTI, 42% DTI, like challenging to qualify, right? And we have a lot of tools here that we offer that can help give you some certainty, right? Like if you're digging deep and making sure you understand a client's full profile, especially initially, do they need a little assistance with their credit? Can their credit maybe open some doors to a better loan that's going to be more competitive as they offer? Are you leveraging credit upgrade? The other piece too is, if I'm looking in one area and now the next, and my property taxes are a little bit different in each area that I look, how is that going to impact how this loan qualifies? Our verified approval letter process will help you get a conditionally approved loan prior to you finding that final home, finding the home that they're going to put the offer in on. So you can play with it a little bit. Raise my loan amount. What if my taxes are not $8,000 but $12,000 for the year? How does that impact what they can qualify from a purchase standpoint? Those are all tools that you guys can lean into us for. Beyond that, we've got some really great stuff with Pathfinder if you're self-serving and you want to figure out, like, hey, this mortgage has a little hair on it. I've got some questions based on this or that, and I want to know for sure if this is something that I can have confidence moving forward with. And then if you're not self-serving, like myself, I get a little lazy at times, call somebody. SOS, our SOS hotline is on-staff underwriters that can help you get through those challenging scenarios. And then we've got other gadgets too. If you're a new loan officer, Product Compare is great. It's a way that you can plug in all of a client's information and understand, like, based on the DTI at this or down payment at this, what are my real options? And it breaks down all the product matrices side by side. And then we've got our affordable products gadget too, which is some of those little nuances I talked about with affordability. If your AMI is at 80, do you live in a certain area? Do you qualify for 1+, Purchase Plus? What's the right route for this client? That tool can help. And we're not going to get into all of this today. That would be a separate training, but something that you all can know is that your account executives are all pros at all of these things that we're talking about right now. So if you have more questions, reach out to your account executive. We can put together a training. We can talk to you about all this stuff. If you're not leveraging it now, these are all wins that'll make your business a little bit better moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And really to help us understand the whole thing about products, there's so much to cover with products. Of course, your account executive would be able to help out and cover a lot of these things. But there are certain things that sometimes hearing from the expert, hearing from the pros would really make the big difference here. And we brought in two of the absolute pros, a mortgage broker, a real estate broker, to come together, share that information. A lot of great knowledge here. I want to welcome, we have Therese Antonelli, mortgage broker, owner of Moving Them In Real Estate Group, and Tony Wright, co-owner and founder of Mortgage AV. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for being here.
Having us.
Appreciate you. We'll start with you, Therese.
Sure.
Tell us more about yourself, and flip it over to Tony.
Happy to. Thanks all for tuning in today. We're very excited to bring you some great tips as we lead into the summer market. I'm Therese Antonelli. I'm the broker owner of a small independent boutique firm right outside of Detroit, Michigan. I've had a license for real estate for 13 years now and a broker's license for 10 years. I have a direct team that works underneath me, and then I run a brokerage of about 25 agents. I am still in production. I sit on almost every listing appointment with any agent within my office, meeting with sellers. I also still work with buyers. So I'm out there in the field. I'm seeing what our buyers have to do to compete in this very challenging market. And I'm so grateful to have a mortgage partner like Tony, who over the past couple years of our friendship and partnership has empowered me as a realtor who is face to face with these clients with gadgets and gizmos and tips and tricks that he has given me to make the no to a yes. So Tony, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Therese. My name's Tony Wright. I'm the co-founder of Mortgage JV. I've been in this business, most of my life. It's funny, you get into something when you're 21 years old and you blink and you're in your 40s. So I started out, primarily helping veterans with their loans. And I looked at it from a service standpoint. I've always looked at origination from service and not just sales. Today, we're leading teams that are primarily working with partners like I partner with Therese to help people understand the financing of home ownership. That's our goal, and we understand that it's really important, especially with some of the challenges that Dan was mentioning right now. So we just try to partner, and my goal here today is to add value to this community.
Awesome. We appreciate you guys. And we know that the market has provided some challenges recently, especially, but you two have done a really good job of kind of bridging that gap, coming together, working as a team. Like, what would you say you two do now to do a better job or find more people to help promote home ownership in today's market?
So I'll hit you from both angles. So angle one is the buyer, right? You have the buyer in today's market, whether they're a first-time home buyer, whether this is their fifth time buying a home. Entering this market, which is very different from most other markets, everybody's a first-time buyer again. You have to teach them and set those clear expectations of what we're going up against, right? We're going up against higher interest rates, which unfortunately puts them in a payment monthly that they probably weren't anticipating. For years, we could kind of play the rent versus own scenario, but we're kind of in a situation with these interest rates that unfortunately doesn't allow us to use that analogy. So they're very scared. They're scared about their payment on a monthly basis, but they're also scared about what they're hearing in the media. They're scared of the bidding wars. They're scared of logistics of the move. So it's just really meeting them where they're at, figuring out their why, what's not working for them where they're at currently, what do they hope for in their future property, and then really just collaborating with that loan officer behind the scenes on, hey, what are we working with? Are we payment driven? Are we dealing with a low, or high DTI that we have to worry about throwing those higher taxes in? And it's just that collaboration between the two of us. So as a realtor, I'm on the front lines. I get to see these people. They get to see me drive up next to them in the car and follow me to the next home. Whereas most of the time, the loan officer is that stranger behind the phone that they can tell me the things, and then I can play back on Tony, and Tony can then feed me what he's allowed to feed me to be able to get them into their next property.
Yeah. One thing I think that is important for me is that as things have changed in the interest rate market, home prices going up, as much as Therese and the real estate agents are always on the front lines, I'm trying to meet them there for a change. I feel like a few years ago, it was always taking a phone call, and we were more service-based behind the scenes. But now the service that we need to provide is also to help bring people off the sidelines, kind of back to this bringing people from a no to a yes. They don't know what they don't know. Yeah. And unfortunately, whether it's outside influences of the media and things like that, I just think we have to have a servant's heart when we're working with, whether it's our realtors, our home buyers, and everyone through the process. At the end of the day, we all are having challenges in this market. We're here, we're grinding through it, we're having perseverance. These are awesome things, but we can't let short-term circumstances or emotions affect what we're gonna do long-term. So I think we kind of partner together at a different level, and that's really what I wanna portray today as we talk more, is making sure that the partnerships get even stronger.
talking about something super important that you mentioned here is you don't know what you don't know. And something that stuck out with me when we were talking about this, definitely going over some of the information, is that something you said, and hopefully you can elaborate on that, that real estate agents need us more as mortgage LOs or loan officers than any other time before. Tell me a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think, like, let's just call a spade a spade. When interest rates are 2 or 3%, I mean, there's not as much that we have to do to overcome. It can be a very transactional relationship when I get an inquiry from Teresa to do a pre-approval. I don't have to have more conversation. But like right now for us, I think that, you know, there's conversations that are more appropriate for me to have than for Teresa to have. When you're talking about ability to repay, and not just ability to repay, we're talking about budgeting and talking about their comfort level, not just that they're pre-approved. We all have pre-approved somebody for much more than they really want to spend per month, right? So these conversations are much more impactful right now, and I believe that it's important for us to help have these conversations for our real estate partners. We've all been on the side of the passing of the baton, if you will, where the real estate agent hands it to the loan officer. Well, now is a time where I should be able to call Therese and say, I had a conversation with one of our past clients, and now that I've had a conversation, a holistic conversation about their finances and their goals, and even jumping on the front lines, finding out their why. I'm doing some of that now. Not as much as Therese, but I'm doing some of that. I think that that leads me to go, Therese, they'd like to have a listing appointment. That might give an agent a little bit of a heart attack because it's usually the other way around. But I think, to your point for us, as I had said earlier, real estate agents need loan officers now more than ever.
I love that.
Can I piggyback?
Yeah, please.
I didn't know if you were going to say more, so I was just waiting.
No, you're good.
In regards to how I utilize Tony more now than ever is, I know we've had a crazy market for the last several years. We've all seen the appraisal guarantees. We've been utilizing the escalation clauses. You know, many of us now in the past, I would call it maybe 2 years, have been utilizing even the appraisal waivers on the buy side to get our buyers' offers accepted. Now, this is that thin line of, I can be a great real estate agent, but as a great real estate agent, I've never looked at their income. I've never looked at their assets. I've never looked at their financials or their credit report. I don't really know what's going on there. He does, and he can't tell me. But when I'm going to structure that offer for that client, I always say when I show a home, I put that house into one of 3 buckets for the buyers. I literally will say, okay, this is a great home. I can see you guys have the butterflies. It'll work for you. We're going to write an offer. Put it in one of 3 buckets. Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you have to have it? If they tell me they have to have it, we're going to go to all lengths to get it for them. Now, the all lengths may be, and again, prefacing, we're in the Metro Detroit market here, it might be $25,000 or $50,000 over asking price on a $300,000 or $400,000 property. I don't know that they have that kind of cash to be able to make that offer and make it to the closing table. So before I'm typing up any offer for them, I'm reaching out to the loan officer. We're all getting into a communication, and I'm saying, all right, here's the list price. Here's where I believe it'll appraise. Here's what we're going to need to offer in order to get it with these bells and whistles of an appraisal guarantee, free occupancy, et cetera, et cetera. And then my loan officer can jump in and say, well, if we end up in worst case scenario and the house appraises for this, but we've offered this with a guarantee, you guys need to be prepared to bring X to the closing table, and then you guys need to be prepared to pay this in a mortgage payment. And until everybody's on board with those numbers, we're not putting a pen to paper.
Yeah.
So that's the huge piece that I've been dependent on more recently than ever. Second one, we've got our 20+% down buyers, right? But I don't have the ability to do what he can in whatever program you guys use to get an appraisal waiver at time of offer. If I can put an offer together with an appraisal waiver, because we have an extremely qualified client, plus the address that you both plug in, and I can waive an inspection, I've got an offer as good as cash, right? So it's all these tricks. Now, here's the other part. He, as my loan officer, has taught me these tricks. I didn't learn them as a realtor. I've learned them along the way on him empowering me and educating me with these tricks so that I can be a better agent and my clients can get these properties.
Yeah. I like the communication piece too, because you're talking about communication, maybe reaching out to the loan officer. How often is the loan officer reaching out to you proactively to give you the ammo that you need to know? Like, I mean, real talk, if the whole market, everything is going for over asking, you know, am I now looking at a slightly different price range? You know, if everything's over asking and that's been consistent, maybe we've had a few no's and we were at, you know, 400 on the purchase price, 450, maybe we go down to 375, 350, change the eye line, put us in a position where we can be more competitive, and the loan officer can communicate that stuff to you ahead of time, right? Especially if you have to build and find these little nuances within the offer, that it can be a little bit stronger.
You mentioned something in your intro about searching for properties that might have been on the market a little bit longer, knowing you could possibly get concessions back. So that's a whole nother thing. When we get that pre-approval letter back and the loan officer tells us, man, they don't have a lot of cash saved up. So if there's anything you can get, please try to get concessions. Well, that's, as a realtor, then my mindset goes to, we're not looking at a brand new, just listed property at the max, you know, their max pre-approval amount. We're searching some properties that have been on market 2 weeks or 30 days because a price reduction is coming on the seller's part, and we might be able to offer full price and get that concession back to be able to get the client the money.
That's healthy for the market too. Real estate agents will love to hear that. I think that's a good way to kind of catch the eye of an agent too. If you're bringing some of that material to the conversation, to an initial conversation, now you've got people's ears perked up and they want to hear you a little bit better. Because we're in a similar business now more than ever, you know, as account executives and as divisional vice presidents working in business partnerships, as what loan officers and real estate agents are doing now, especially. But what else would you say is anything that a loan officer could do to be like a really good partner to you?
So I always say communication. Like, I need communication. I can't do a 9 to 5 because as a realtor, we're house hunting with our clients when our clients are off work. And the majority of people in our country work 9 to 5. So they want to look at houses from 5 p.m. on in the evenings and on weekends, nights and weekends, right? So also many bidding wars and many highest and best deadlines that are posted are usually on a weekend, a Saturday at noon, a Sunday at noon. And if I need my loan officer to run those numbers to ensure that my client has enough cash to close with a crazy appraisal guarantee, I need him to run those numbers on the weekend. Furthermore, whenever I submit an offer to a listing agent on behalf of my buyer, I always like to CC that loan officer. And then I'll usually jump over and shoot him a quick text message and be like, I don't know where you're at or what you're doing, but will you please just jump on that email thread so that that listing agent believes that you're sitting behind your computer and ready to take her questions. So we always have that great communication as well.
That's great.
There's a lot of optionality as a loan officer that you would provide as well, Tony. I mean, what are some of the things that you discuss with Therese that would help out, and what you just talked about with this?
Yeah, I think, you know, it does start with the non-negotiables, I call them, like the communication and availability, but those are literally cost of entry things to work with any good real estate agent, let's be honest. So those are expectations. And I think right now, when there's loan officers out there that are trying to build relationships with people like Therese, they have to say, like, what can I do to add value? What are these things? Tony said earlier, you got to, you know, do things differently. You've got to be there for them. These things are practical. This is stuff like, I'll give you some basic examples. Don't be too proud to stuff envelopes to send stuff out. Don't be too proud to like give up your night to do a home buying seminar.
That's huge.
A Saturday afternoon to do a community event. Like, what are the little things that you're willing to do to add value to the agent? This is one of the tricks that I've used in the past when trying to build relationships with new agents, is I just ask them this simple question. If you could clone yourself, what would your second self do with all that free time? And then I try to do as many of those things as I can, right? It's a real partnership. We can't, again, just stand beside and wait for a referral. How do we help them grow their business? And that's the best way for you to really partner with new real estate agents.
I love that.
Love that.
So, by the way, realtor, we're probably going to discuss that off air. I'm not sure.
It's REALTOR.
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 I'll make sure I will
There's
say
no
that.
I.
I got you.
If
No
they didn't
I
get
in
anything
realtor.
else from this, you got that.
Yeah.
No.
This
There's a lot more to it, too.
Take that. Don't mess
I'm sure there's
that
a
up.
lot more. This is a great debate as well.
Just
There's
kick the word from your vocabulary and say real estate agent. You're
Got it. That's what I'm
All
trying to do. That keep everybody happy here. But we definitely have a lot of questions coming in. Please keep these coming. We're going to try to get to everything as much as possible with the time that allowed. But we have a lot of good questions. And some of the things, it's sometimes working with a real estate agent's realtor and a loan officer, it's not always sunshine and rainbow. There could be ups and downs, things that would happen. What are some of the challenges, unique challenges that you facing in this current market?
Well, I'll tell you up front, we are always going to blame the loan officer. We are, and I'm sorry, but we're going to blame you because you're usually behind the computer screen in an email thread. You're behind the phone. You're never going to have to touch and feel that person again. You're never going to have to drop off a pumpkin roll every Thanksgiving to their front porch. So we do throw you under the bus. And oftentimes, it might be your fault or the processor's fault or all those other people you blame behind the scenes, like the underwriters and the appraisers. But oftentimes, it's the realtor's fault. And it's the realtor's fault because they haven't properly communicated with you. They've put an offer out on paper without making sure that the client could qualify for what they put on paper, right? They could set unclear expectations, right? If I've got a listing agent coming back at me as a buyer's agent with an offer saying, oh, we really want a 2-week close, there's no way in heck I'm putting a 2-week close on there unless I get confirmation from my loan officer that says, yeah, we can do it, no problem. We've got an appraisal waiver, you've waived the home inspection, I've already got them fully approved, then we'll close in 2. But I think that oftentimes, I'll take the blame, we all do it for those realtors who are on the thing today. We set unrealistic expectations sometimes, and therefore it's our fault. But there are hiccups, right? But again, that communication, right? Have the communication up front. If there is a hiccup and all of a sudden we're going to need another round of pay stubs or next month's bank statement, so that we as the real estate agent can be upfront with the listing agent, who can be upfront with the seller, just being proactive about everything and not hiding it to the 11th hour when the moving trucks are packed and people expect to be sleeping in different houses.
Yeah. Now, it's something that you had said, Tony, because I honestly don't think that I hear this a ton when I talk to my partners about communication with listing agents.
Yeah.
So that's something that I know is kind of a focus for you. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I think that, my primary goal is to help prospective buyers with my real estate partners. But this is another technique I've used to pick up other real estate agents that I can work with. And it goes above and beyond, say, showing up to an open house. I know that I can use some incentivized pricing that will allow me to help that house be more marketable. I usually combine an incentivized pricing with some of the buy downs that Rocket has available for me. So for example, that might look like, say, a 6.99 interest rate is what I'm using as my incentivized price. And then if I know, because I've worked with my real estate agent, that at a full price offer, the seller would contribute towards that buy down, I'm now advertising a 4.99 at an open house. Beats the heck out of just showing up at the open house. This can go a step further, Dan, where my listing agents that I start working with time and time again are asking me, hey, can you put one of those deals again together on my next house? Or I'm getting ready to go to a listing appointment and I want to be able to talk about this. This allows the real estate agent that is in that listing appointment to separate themselves from other listing agents, saying, I have a partnership that will help. They can't change the interest rates in their mind, but there's some things that we can do within reason, Dan.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd like to piggyback on that.
Yeah, please.
Because I have a really good thing to share. I know that the majority of the people watching today are loan officers. As an agent who sits on many listing appointments, something that I've probably mastered in the last 5 years from being so close with Tony is being able to sit down on a listing appointment. And for many years, we would sit listing appointments and the thought process was, oh gosh, we got to throw a sign in the front yard. Oh gosh, we got to get an offer. Then we got to close. Then we got a 60-day marathon to try to find these people another home, again, with no inventory, needle in a haystack. So one thing that Tony, as a loan officer, has empowered with me, which I would suggest many of you loan officers out there, host a lunch and learn with some of your broker partners and their agents to empower them with this information as well. So now what I do, I sit a listing appointment. And my clients across the table from me are scared to death of what this is going to look like, the logistical nightmare of selling and buying in today's market, right? They're selling and they're sitting on a 1.99 or 2.5% interest rate, already going to a 6 or 7. They're scared to death of that. Number two, they're worried. They're worried how they're going to move their 2.5 kids, their 3 dogs, their 2 cats, their parrot, and their guinea pig. They don't know how it's going to work. But again, Tony gave me this trick. So the first step when you meet with these listing or these clients to sell is you find out if they're in the financial position to buy their next home before they sell their current home in a non-contingent way. The minute you propose this to them, the weight is off their shoulders. Now, I can never decide that while sitting at their kitchen table, but I can give them the idea, I can lay out that timeline, and then I can pitch them over to my loan officer to be able to have that initial conversation to verify cash on hand for closing costs, to verify current debt to incomes plus a future debt to income with that, purchase of the second mortgage. And if we're able to pull it off, which I'm just going to knock on some wood because 75% of the time we're able to do it on a 5% down conventional loan on their future home, not contingent on their current home. And again, we're looking at 5% down plus closing cost. I am sitting at their kitchen table and I'm saying, do you have $35,000 in your checking, in your savings, in your investments, in your retirement? Can you get a gift from a family member? And the light bulbs are just going off, Now, I'll never know their DTIs on that meeting, but then Tony can have that conversation. And then Tony can spit out that not contingent pre-approval letter, and we've completely flipped the script.
Yep.
Number one, we're able to house hunt for as long as we possibly need to find that perfect home so they're not settling because they're in distress on a 60-day timeline.
Yep.
So it's made me a stronger listing agent having this partnership with my loan officer.
I love that. And this is, I know there's so many questions that we're going to get some of those questions as well, but I know you're passionate about a question that you wanted to ask and discuss with this, because this is the partnership, this is the relationship, what you're talking about as well in here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think something that you said a lot about being a selling agent and being able to alleviate that pressure is such a big deal. And, if you don't, like what you were talking about had me thinking about like potentially doing a recast in the future because they want to put a ton down because they don't necessarily know that they don't have to, and that, post-purchase there's still options to make some changes to the mortgage so you don't have that time constraint. But what would you guys say is like the main objections that you really see today? Because as salespeople, especially the behind the computer guy, I've been that guy.
Yeah.
So it was really like 3 things that somebody would object to. But what are the objections that you guys are primarily seeing?
I'd say the number one is going to be that payment monthly. And it's really, Teresa and I work real good as like the psychology of the buying process, or so I would call it. It starts almost as like payment shock. Either way, people again, going back to they don't know what they don't know, they have preconceived ideas of what a mortgage payment might be. Maybe they've jumped into a mortgage calculator. But the first thing that we're working through is just kind of like understanding what that payment is. The second thing is that a lot of people that are new to market, they don't know things about appraisal guarantees and offering over asking. We know that in the industry because we deal with it on a daily basis, but your buyer who's been saving up for a couple years, got their credit score right, and they're finally ready to have this conversation with me, I start talking about things like you might need to offer more than what it is, and you need to be prepared for more than just down payment and closing costs, but an appraisal guarantee. Therese then takes these people out, and you're not always getting the first offer accepted, are you?
No. So the payment shock is probably the number one objection these days. But the second objection that we often get isn't necessarily from the buyer. It's from all the people in the buyer's ears. It's the mom, it's the dad, it's the friends that bought back in 2015 and 16, or even 20 and 21 when the rates were lower and the market was easier. They're getting a lot of static from non-professionals. So part of our job is to just push through all the objections of their friends and their family. You know, when we're going out and we're showing a home and they're saying that they love it, but we're one agent and a client standing in a line of 12 other agents and clients just trying to get through the revolving door, then they realize, oh man, like this is a lot. And then you're right, Tony, they got to miss out on the first one because they don't listen to you or me, and they're scared and they're not pulling from their 401k, or they're not willing to ask mom and dad for that gift. And then they lose out on the second one, and then the third one, and then by the fourth, mom and dad are writing the check, or they're taking the 401k withdrawal, and they're getting their home. And you did piggyback on that recast as well. That's another thing. When I'm at that listing appointment, and I'm a 43-year-old woman, I should have known what a recast was 20 years ago. But it wasn't until recently when we started doing this little trick of let's get them pre-approved, not contingent on the sale of their current home, put that 5% down, let them make 2 of those big monthly mortgage payments, call the loan officer up and just recast, taking all that equity they cashed out of their current home, putting it against their future mortgage. Again, that pulls down that sticker shock of that monthly payment as well, because they're going to see what that monthly payment is at 5%. But then when they pull 100, 150, 200,000 of equity after they sell their home and throw that against their principal and recast, now that payment doesn't look so bad.
Yeah, that payment was just something they were dealing with while they
2
were
months,
finding the next
yes,
house.
2 months.
And I love that, especially kind of leaning into the product piece, because you know, for us as salespeople dealing with brokers, we're always thinking of like, hey, what can I talk to somebody about that we can add a little bit of value to their business? That's what we're in the business of. And I think you and your loan officers and everybody on the mortgage side is doing the same thing, but now with agents.
Yeah.
If you were to talk a little bit about products and how you can leverage those to build a better agent relationship or build a little bit more trust with your clients.
Yeah, I think it's a really good transition actually, because we just talked about the unique challenges in this market, and they take some creativity. So products are products, yes, but if they can be used to help us overcome some of these unique challenges. So I'll give you a quick story. And this doesn't happen all the time. I do want to preface and say I understand that some of these products don't fit the box for everyone, but they allow me as the loan officer and the trusted professional to have conversations about things like affordability and this payment shock that they might be having. So I can tell an example of the 2-1 buy down, and I did this on an FHA, funded the loan through Rocket Pro, TPO, and it was one of those things where the payment was $2,000 and their current rent is $1,400. So that scared them. They're like, oh, I can't afford $2,000. And I'm like, well, you're pre-approved for it. Doesn't mean that they want that payment, right? Doesn't mean that they don't have expenses that don't show up on a credit report, like how much they spend on a Friday night or a Saturday night, right? Well, you're walking them through this. And we did 2-1 buy down, and I explained to them, I can get you down to about $1,600 for the first year, $1,800 in the second year, and $2,000 in the third. Most times, I just want to, again, I don't want to mislead anybody. Most times people end up not following through on these products, but it helps them kind of get comfortable going, maybe I could afford $2,000 if this or if that. So I love the 2-1 buy down. That's one thing that I use to just talk about affordability and that payment shock. Another thing that I love to do is I work with you guys to improve credit scores all the time. And that's something that can drop someone's payment significantly. You know, they come to us with, let's call it a 600 credit score or 620. That sometimes it's the difference of getting them pre-approved or not. And other times it's just saving them $50 or $100 a month by increasing their credit. So it doesn't matter what the product really is. It's just another conversation piece to kind of overcome these unique challenges that we find in the marketplace. And also to your point, Dan, it does allow us to then talk about these intangibles, these value propositions to help win over more realtors. We're all in this together. Again, it's hard out there. We've got to be willing to have the hard conversations. It's not easy for real estate agents or loan officers, but let's put ourselves aside for a minute and let's think about the buyers. Let's think about these sellers and their challenges. And if we're worried about their success first and foremost, the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, identifying concerns is so big, and something that we talked about last time was, you know, are they under the impression that they shouldn't buy or that they can't buy? You know, that's an objection too. And I mean, digging deep is just so important, and everything that you guys are talking about is just tying it in together. Like, how can we work together as a part of this process? Because sometimes it is an emotional benefit, and you're probably identifying that better. Sometimes, you know, knowing how loose you can get is gonna save your reputation, right? Like, if I'm a loan officer and I'm doing the right things, and you know, this person's putting a lot of pressure on you to find that house that they have to have, you know, am I like arming you with the right information and know like how far you can take it? And am I doing that proactively? Right? Because it only matters ahead of time. And truthfully, there's times that you're gonna call and I can't take that call, but I could have called you 3 days prior and given you what you needed in that moment ahead of time. So it's a lot about the teamwork and being proactive, and I love that.
There's so many good questions. I'm actually going to pick something off from one of our partners here. I think this is really relative to what we're talking about, and then we'll jump into some other questions as well. This is from Fernando, one of our partners. As a new mortgage loan officer, what are some of the things I could do to network in my community and get my name out there for all the new LOs? That would be for you, Tony.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's not hard to find networking communities, but I'll give you a practical thing, Fernando. The main thing is be interested before you're interesting. So forget about what you can find a million things to go to, but you got to be interested in someone, how you can help them. And again, if you're thinking of how you can benefit them, the rest will take care of itself. That's what people are there to network for too. There's a really good book called Giver's Gain out there that, and another one called The Go-Giver. There's a lot of these mentalities that if you're always thinking about other people first, the rest will take care of itself. Relationships take a long time. Sure. So I would go into a networking event, whether it's a visitor at a BNI, whether it's some sort of like Chamber of Commerce event. I'm gonna go into these events knowing that I don't have the relationship with people I know. So as much as the question is, how do you get into that community and build relationship? Consistency, keep going back, don't get discouraged, bring the value propositions that we talked about, whether it's the buy downs and how you can make home ownership more affordable. Go back to what I was telling you guys earlier. Be willing to partner, really partner with your realtor to stuff the envelope, to actually get out there and lead gen, if you will. If you do that, you'll find as many real estate agents as you want to work with.
Absolutely. Please, yeah, please.
So I love that, BNI. I never did it. I know you did it for some years. Chamber of Commerce, you got Lions clubs and Kiwanis clubs and anything if you're in a smaller community, just being involved, being present, buy a $25 tent at the local farmer's market, you're gonna meet people. Digging deeper into our professional community, there's a really great publication, they're all independently owned and operated throughout our country, called Real Producers. Real Producers is usually like a real estate-backed magazine of some of the top producers in the area. And being a loan officer partner or just coming to those events, I'm pretty sure as loan officers you gotta pay to get in, but you're gonna make connections. Homebuyer seminars, trust me, Wednesday nights, Sunday afternoons, the last thing I want to be doing is hosting a homebuyer seminar, spending money on pizza and salad, and talking for an hour and a half. But we've done them for years, and we've had huge success with them. But it's dedicating your time to it, dedicating your talent to it. Those people that show up for those homebuyer seminars, they might be long-term plays. Mm-hmm. You might be working with these people for 2 or 3 years, but the humbleness and the humanness that you give in a small group like that, if somebody who actually raises their hand and comes to an office on a Wednesday night not knowing anybody else, they're serious. They might not buy now, but they'll buy in the future. And then I have 2 more. Email or even just a phone call. There's so many programs. I don't even know all the programs that Rocket offers, but we talked a little bit about the area-specific grants that are available. Find some listings in an area where some of these grants are available. Reach out to those listing agents who may be partnered with a loan officer that doesn't dig as deep as you're willing to go or have the offerings that you're able to offer. Let that listing agent know, hey, did you know I'm a loan officer with blah, 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 and I'm actually offering a program in the area of your listing. I'd love the ability to help you get it sold. I would love that. I learn a new thing about something like that every day through an email, a voicemail, a phone call from a loan officer that's just thinking outside of the box and reaching out to me as a listing agent to tell me about a program that is available in an area.
So I was going to go for you to that with that question actually from Christopher, one of our partners, but you already addressed it. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for the question as well.
I can piggyback because I see there's a couple there. So lunch and learns are great. Seriously, just find some local real estate offices. You might get a few no's. I gave Tony a no for many years, and then I gave him a big yes. But
patience pays off sometimes.
There's going to be turnover, right? A broker or an agent, loan officer might be amazing for them right now. And then there might just be a change in dynamic or a change in that loan officer's life, and they're not as great as they maybe had been in the past. And that agent may need a new partnership. So again, just making sure your presence is known, being interested, and then the connection will happen organically.
I think consistency is something that you're saying a lot, and I think it's something that's really hard. And I think it's especially hard, like we live in a world where, you know, I've worked at this company for 13 years. Driving consistency in message and consistency in communication is something that we've mastered. But if you're on your own, it's something that can be a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you hold yourself accountable to that? And I think you're right, 3 years, it's a long time, but I've built relationships that I followed up with for 3 years, maybe longer. You know, the long game plays, and a lot of times it's timing. Because, you know, does Tony provide you the benefit that you needed in the moment that you needed it? And now you're questioning, like, are the other people I'm working with giving me the same stuff, right? Year after year, month after month, they're getting that. But question for you, Tony. If I was a loan officer and I was just starting out, I know I've got to go, you know, 2 feet in on a purchase market. I need to establish relationships. What should I be doing?
I think the number one thing that we have to talk about here is that you have no ability to make money without an actual person to work with, right? Too many times loan officers are getting tied up in training after training, and they're just not doing enough business development or relationship building. So it's a holistic approach to not being afraid to do some of the getting your elbows dirty, if you will, and making the phone calls and sticking to it. I know how hard it can be to stay to a schedule, especially when nobody is holding you accountable to it. But it's these little things. At the end of the day, we only have so much time. I preach this a lot to the people that I lead, but I say we have the most valuable coin we have in our pocket is time, and we get to choose how we spend it. And that's including with our families, but also with our businesses, because everything that you're doing has an opportunity cost to it. So, you know, when I first had met Therese, I was just trying to add value to her and in networking. So if you're always planting these seeds, you'll never know when they'll sprout up. But you also have to kind of do a tug of war with what's going to get me paid today. So you guys can know the activities that you should be taking on a daily basis that might lead to a quicker paycheck, if you will. These are people that had maybe, for example, been pre-approved a year ago but still haven't purchased. These are the leads that I try to follow back up with, again, to get them off the sidelines. I use the term active buyer. Are they actually showing, is Therese actually showing them homes? That's what I want to do, is I want to take people, again, like this whole series, to take people from a no to a yes. I'd be contacting people that were looking at buying a home a year ago and having conversations with them. Dan, I also wanted to add this, though. Be careful to not tell people too much, because telling is selling, and people don't want to be sold. At the end of the day, these challenges that we talked about that are unique, if you have questions for your clients that kind of lead them through where they're going to be in a year or two if they do or if they don't, and where do you think home prices will be in a year from now, it's such a better technique than just saying, you should buy now because prices are going to be up, and then you can marry the house and date the rate, and blah, blah, blah. That's just not going to win them over. In 2024, with the information that's out there, we're dealing with a very smart buyer.
We are.
That doesn't mean they know everything. You need to help them self-discover and walk them through it. So the number one thing that I would be doing, Dan, is I'd be having conversations with people that should buy. I'd help them self-discover it, and I'd bring people off the sidelines.
Yeah, I think too, I mean, now that we've got second mortgages, home equity loans, You know, those people that said no a year ago, they may still say no, but that doesn't mean that as a loan officer, we shouldn't be communicating with them. Because like, you know, they decided not to move, but maybe their home now isn't what they need. And we looked at the equity numbers, you know, in the last 9 years, 130,000 nationwide. In the last year, 10%. You know, there's opportunity there for people to build within their current situation that we can benefit from. And I think that, you know, loan officers, and you talked about being, you know, a loan officer kind of leading the relationship, which I love. And for the first time, like, you know, passing that baton, you know, loan officers have more reason to stay in contact with these people, I think, than real estate agents do oftentimes. Because we're going to be refinancing, we're going to be doing cash outs. You know, how do we, you know, sell the benefits of my internal process as a loan officer that a real estate agent's going to latch onto? Because we're doing it anyways, but are we passing it along? Now, there was a really good question by Erwin G. And I have talked to a lot of partners about this because it's like, you know, you're chewing the fat on a situation, like, what are you doing to grow? How are you doing this? And it's like, are you out there doing lunch and learns? And it's like something that I say that I've never done.
Oh.
But like, how do you help fill that room?
Yeah.
Because I think it's kind of an actionable thing that you can do.
You know, the number one thing to fill a room is really going to come down to marketing, though. It doesn't matter. Nobody knows what the value of that lunch and learn will really be until they're there. So unfortunately, or fortunately, so you can pick up the trick, it's really just a marketing thing. So what works for me is the power of the personal invite, an actual phone call. I'm not just going to throw something only on Facebook or send out an email blast, but I'm going to be calling people and making sure that people come to my lunch and learn. There's little things, and Teresa's the best at this, by the way. Teresa hosts a lunch and learn every single Thursday at her office. I'll have her speak about it. But I do want to let you know that if, for those that are getting started, it won't look like Teresa originally, but it can get there. Remember this is a cool thing that I use for my own thinking. Your first one should be your worst one. It doesn't have to be bad, but it should be the worst one because it should get better and better. More people will come. So don't get discouraged. Don't do the Dan and just not do it. Get out there, and who cares if 3 people show up? Now you get some one-on-one time with 3 agents. But Teresa, you've been running Lunch and Learn since I met you, before I was even her preferred lender, and it's literally a part of the culture of your office, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've had my own brokerage for coming up on 10 years now, next month.
Nice.
I also have a teaching degree, so it kind of took my real estate plus that teaching degree that I have to meld together. So I've been doing Lunch and Learns every Thursday. After COVID, we've dropped them down to every other Thursday, but for the last 10 years. And it's part of it is it's a time just for my office to get together, great culture of the company, but we're always bringing people in. And because we're talking about mortgages and loan officers right now, I'll touch on a few things that we've done very successfully. So you speak of the matrix, right? I don't know what that means because I'm a realtor, but we have a wonderful matrix. I actually have it saved as a picture in my iPhone that literally is in my favorites, and I can go to anytime I need to write it off. Or it's that you probably created it. It's if it's an FHA mortgage, how much in concessions we can get. If it's a conventional 3%, how much we can get, 5%, foreclosure and bankruptcy and years out, that one, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a great mortgage 101, and it's an awesome refresher. We'll do it like twice a year because we kind of need that refresher, and guidelines change, right? The other one that's super cool is, although I personally have bought a couple homes throughout my life, we're real estate agents. So I'm sure that conversation that our loan officer has with us on the phone to get us pre-approved is very casual, maybe a little different because they think we know what we don't know. But we've done that one where it's the role play Lunch and Learn, where the loan officer actually role plays with one of our agents on what the conversation actually goes like when they're on the phone with the consumer. So then that puts that information in my mind, like when I tell that consumer, hey, just so you know, you're gonna hop on a call with Tony. It's a confidential call. He's gonna talk about, you know, what your monthly debts are, what you two make for a living, how much money you have saved up, and I need to kind of know the tip of the iceberg stuff so I can prep them for that phone call with Tony. And that was a really fun one, that role play. But It's just bringing value. Bring good food, like find the hottest place around. It
He's
doesn't
the
have
best
to be.
at that. That's
doesn't
why
have to be
so many people show up. They get full.
But offer good food. I find a convenient time for me in my office are Thursdays. It's not a Monday or a Tuesday fresh off the weekend. A lot of things happen on Monday and Tuesdays in realtor lives, right? If they got an offer accepted over the weekend, they're sitting on a 3-hour home inspection. The way that my office works, I'm on the road every Monday and Tuesday photographing and taking on new listings for the week. So steer clear of Mondays or Tuesdays. Wednesdays or Thursdays usually work. Hit them around lunchtime. We do an 11 to 1. Lunch gets served at 11. We literally learn and then we chat for the next hour and a half, and it's pretty cool.
I got one last question because I think you just touched on this. It's from Richard M. What would you recommend a loan officer say during that initial conversation with a prospective realtor to gain their trust? Because I think, you know, showing the sales side, showing like how your process is a genius training.
Yeah.
You know, that builds a ton of trust. Like,
Yeah.
you know what you're handing off.
Right.
But what else can they say to kind of get you bought in that this is a person that I want to work with?
Honestly, I think that the offerings of the programs that the people who use Rocket have are huge, right? I don't necessarily know what they all are, which is crazy because I'm a realtor in very high production, but like a lunch and learn where he's like, this is what this is, this is what this is, this is what this is, to be able to just empower us and educate us about those programs. Even that day that we met and you shared with me about that location-based grant, like that was amazing, you know?
Purchase Plus we offer, for sure.
So having the initial conversation with a partner of what they offer that maybe what the current agent's preferred lender doesn't offer, right? Because you're gonna have people who work at smaller banks or smaller credit unions that aren't brokers, that aren't able to offer these programs that you are.
Arming you with the knowledge you need in your market.
Sure. So there's so many things: relationship, communication, trust, be known. I know we can go on and on because there is so much great material that we're covering, and I hope everyone is actually taking notes on this and build their future because we got you. Everybody here has some interesting and great topics, but we're definitely going to bring all this together with a lot of good review and close it out. Dan, what
we gave you some of the statistics on what the financial implications are for lowering rates. Also, you know, what do we need to know about like that person who's immediately ready for a new purchase? Or maybe it doesn't have to be as immediate as we thought initially, right? By building that out. But talking about how loan products can help, you know, build trust or uncover objections. I love that. And then really the overarching theme is like, as loan officers, what can we do better to support our agents? And a lot of times it's just asking the right questions, finding those needs, and uncovering that. So hopefully we got all of those 4 things knocked out today. I think we did. But this was another installment of Pro Performance. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, who's watching now, and Tony and Therese. Honestly, this was great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being pros.
Clap it up for these.
I think we can.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.